good afternoon or good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out to our shade gardening class for shade plants for North Texas. It's great to see such a big crowd today. Thank you all for coming out. My name is Joyce. I am the marketing person and co-owner of Marshall Grain Company. So today I'm going to talk about shade plants for North Texas. The list I'm passing around right now is actually, there's two lists. The longer list, which is a matrix, is a list of a lot of different shade plants, both native and non-native, that we typically carry in our nursery here. The other list, the shorter list, is specifically ones that are native to our area. So I know a lot of folks like to try to plant native pollinators and stay with native plants. There's a lot of good reasons for doing that. So, but keep in mind that the plants that we sell here typically are, unless they're sold specifically as an annual or a tropical, they are going to be adapted for our climate. So if you buy a tree or a large shrub or something like that from us, unless they are, like I said, an exotic plant, they're going to be well adapted to this area and would work well along with your natives and your gardens. So today I'm going to start by defining shade. Next I'm going to talk a little bit about plant tags. That's very important. I'll also talk about factors other than sunlight that you need to consider when you're planting your shade garden. I'll talk about ways that you can create shade if you don't have enough shade. And I'll also talk just briefly about lawn grasses and which ones are best for our area in more shady spots. So, defining shade. One of the frustrations with growing a shade garden here in North Texas is because of our heat, a lot of plants that might take full sun in another part of the country will not grow in full sun here. They'll just burn up. And so understanding the requirements of your plant, whatever plant it is that you're choosing for your garden, you want to make sure that you understand the light requirements, because here in Texas that information is really a lot more important than it might be in other parts of the country. The other thing about that is just most plants that flower are going to do better in a little bit more sun as opposed to a little bit less sun. So if a plant tag says it'll take part shade and you put it in deeper shade than it wants, it may still grow there, but it's probably not going to thrive. It may not bloom as much, it may not grow as fast, it may not look as full. So that's another thing, another reason why you want to try to understand as much as you can about the plant requirements before you plant them, so that you're giving them the best possible environment to grow in, so that your garden will look its best. So that brings me to plant tags. And I specifically brought this one up here because of its plant tag. This is called a distilium, and it's a great plant for Texas shade gardens. But if you look at the plant tag, it will tell you to put it in full sun. And if you put this, I would not put this plant in full sun, because it's literally going to burn up if it gets too much sun. So again, our heat is the reason why you wouldn't want to do that. So what we tell people is the people who make plant tags don't live in Texas. Okay, so just keep that in mind.
They live in California.
So even a plant that supposedly takes full sun here, almost all of our plants would prefer to have some afternoon shade just because of the heat. And so, that's just life in Texas. Get used to it. If you're from the north, get used to it. But that's just how it is here. That is a good shade plant. The Distilleum would be a good shade plant for a partial shade area, especially if the shade part of the day is in the afternoon. So a lot of plants are like that. They want morning sun, afternoon shade. Azaleas and hydrangeas are good examples of the larger shrubs that do very well here as long as they're getting morning sun, afternoon shade. If you do it the other way around and give them afternoon sun and morning shade, they're going to just burn up. So that's why you might want to find ways to create more shade if you don't have a lot of shade. So ways to create shade. Let's see. I'm sorry. Before I go on to that, so back to plant tags just briefly. When we talk about sun and light requirements here in Texas, 6 hours is considered to be full sun. So any more than that is some plants would prefer to have 8. A lot of your native prairie plants will do very well in 12 hours of hot sun, but we're talking specifically about shade plants, so I'm going to stay away from that kind of stuff. So 6 hours is enough to be considered full sun. As long as you've got 6 hours, you've got full sun in that spot. The shade, part sun, part shade. If you look at the chart there that I've passed around, part sun, part shade is going to be in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 hours of sun and the rest in shade. And then medium shade would be like 2 to 4 hours of sun, direct sun, or bright sun, bright light, and the rest of the day in shade. And then deep shade, which is going to be your hardest to grow things in, would be less than 2 hours. And so that gives you just kind of a rough idea of what you might have in your garden, the different types of shade areas that you might have in your garden. So we talked about time of day. So how do you find out how much shade you have, shade or sun you have in your garden? And the best way to do this, this was one of the first things I learned when I started gardening in Texas, and I just love this because it's really such a garden saver. It's a back saver for you because you're not trying to plant plants where they don't belong. But it's called making a sun track. And if you own a home, you should have gotten a packet of information about your property that tells you where your property lines are and what structures are where on that plot of land and stuff like that. And so you should have something that looks like this in your reference material about your property. And if you take this and make a few copies of it, because you're going to need them. And what you want to do is about this time of year, around the beginning of June or so, is a good time to do this because we're kind of at the cusp of leaving spring and going into summer. We haven't gotten into the real hot weather yet, but we're getting there. And the days are day-night ratio is relatively even. So you take these out there, and you stand in your yard, and you look at your yard from the street or wherever, and shade in the area that, if you go out there like 10 o'clock in the morning and take one of these copies and shade in the area that's in shade at that particular time of day. And write down what time it was, because you'll forget. But if you're like me, you will anyway. And then go back out there again like around noon and do the same thing, and then again at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. You will have an excellent record of where your sun is and at various times of the day. And that will tell you how many hours of shade you have versus how many hours of sun. And so that I have found to be really useful thing to do. People come in here all the time and try to describe it to us. And it's very difficult, for us to say, well, gee, yeah, okay, you've got a tree there, so obviously there's some shade, but, it depends on which way your house faces and other factors, how far do the limbs droop down, what neighbor trees your neighbors have, and stuff like that, that contribute to the shade in that area and so forth. So I had a lady call on the phone yesterday and said, she just wanted to tell me over the phone. And, and I said, I really can't give you an accurate estimate of how much shade you have from that. She said, well, what if I bring in a picture? I said, well, one picture isn't going to be real helpful, because I won't even know, I'd have to know when it was taken, the time of day, and then that would still only tell me what it was like in that area at that time of day, on that day. So having more information for us to work with is obviously going to help us pick out a plant for you. So if you can do a sun track, I would highly recommend that you do that. So once you know what type of shade you have where, you can start choosing your plants. And the bad news is nothing grows very well in deep shade. I lived in a house, I used to live in Capel, now I live in Bedford. And my house in Capel was mostly sun, except for one side of my house that was always in shade because my neighbor's house shaded it. And the previous owners or whatever had put some plants in that area, some shrubs along that side of the house, and those things never grew an inch. We were there for like 5 or 6 years. Never grew an inch. And they were very weak and brittle. If you touched them, they would break. And that's just an indication that they weren't getting enough sun. There just aren't very many plants that will grow in that much shade. If you have that much shade, you could probably go with maybe some house plants. Might do well, like a peace plant might do well, but then you run into the issue of the heat. It won't take the heat. So even if you could find a plant that would do well in that spot, it may not be able to survive just because of the weather. It might be fine as an indoor plant, but not as an outdoor plant. See, I'll start talking about specific plants here. You can see I have a bunch of plants up here. They're all going to be shade plants, obviously. Not all of them are going to be the same amount of shade, so I tried to bring a variety up here. This is, there's a lot more plants we have that would do well in shade. This is just a sampling. I didn't try to cart any of the trees over here. One of the plants I have up here that would make either a good indoor plant or an outdoor plant is this one here. It's called a cast iron plant. The Latin name is Aspidistra eleator or something like that. And this one happens to be what they call a variegated variety. They have ones with solid green leaves, and then this one here with the little dots on it, that's considered a variegated variety. And this one will take probably the the most shade of the plants that I have up here right now. This would be probably the most shade tolerant of the ones I have up here. It's an evergreen out in the landscape. It's grown as an evergreen. It does grow to be, 2 feet tall outside, as long as it's getting enough light. It does very well in deep shade. It's a good substitute for hostas. Hostas won't take quite as much shade as this will. So if you've got hostas and they're not doing well, this might be something to swap out for them. And then
How does that do during the winter, like the cold months?
it is an evergreen here, so it should do well as long as we don't have another snowmageddon,
Okay.
where we had the minus 12 and all of
Right.
that.
Okay.
All bets are off when we have winters like that.
Okay.
But the normal North Texas winter, it should be an evergreen.
Okay, good.
Hostas, I have a hosta in front here. Hi, Bandit. Bandit is one of our 3 cats. If you see an orange tabby, he is not one of our cats. He belongs to our neighbor.
He just thinks he is.
He thinks he is, yes. He has a home up the street, but he likes our house better. So, hostas, I love hostas because they do really well in shade. They come in a zillion different varieties. Some are taller than others, some are wider than others. If they get enough sun, they will bloom, but they'll still do well for you. Even if they're not blooming, they still look great because you get the different foliage colors and stuff like that. I have some more hostas on the table behind these 2 folks here, and I have some more outside on this aisle on the outside of the greenhouse, just to give you an idea. I just wanted to show this one because it's in the middle of blooming.
Joyce, I've got a question. What about soil type? Because my soil's real clay and I have to amend it for my beds. Would it need to be a sandy loam where there's good drainage? Or can it be a little bit thicker with compost? Does that make a difference to these shade plants?
You grow it in a pot.
Yeah.
Yeah, or grow in a pot.
As far as shade plants versus sun plants, what's basically, we have poor soil here. Our native soil is very poor,
Right.
and it tends to be alkaline because most of us have clay soil,
Right.
and clay is going to be alkaline. So you don't need to send away to Texas A&M for a soil test. I can tell you already what you've got. And there are, hostas. Some of your other plants do prefer more acidic soil. So when you're planting them, you would, maybe want to mix in some like cottonburr compost is more acidic than some of our other composts would be. But as far as the texture of the soil and things like that, ideally you want what they call sandy loam, which is a loose, not too loose, but crumbly, dark, rich-looking soil with, if you're organic, it's going to have lots of microorganisms in it, lots of earthworms and things like that. And obviously, since we're organic, that's what we would like to see you do. But the condition of the soil, unless you're growing like succulents, like cactus, those are going to want a more rocky soil, more gravelly type thing. But for your Texas natives, they're all going to really prefer the sandy loam. There are some natives like black-eyed Susans and even Blackfoot daisies. Those will do very well in just poor clay soil. They love to just be out in the worst part of your garden, but most of your plants are going to want that sandy loam.
Well, like Turk's crap, I can plant in just about any kind of soil and it'll grow.
Yeah, the Turk's cap is pretty forgiving. like I said, some of your, um, they're still Texas natives, but they're not like strictly North Texas natives, like azaleas, camellias, hydrangeas. Those do a lot better down in Houston because it's more, the soil's different down there. They don't have the clay that we have. If you go to East Texas, the piney woods, they're gonna have more acidic soil because of the pine in the soil. But for us here, you've got clay soil, it's alkaline, so if you want to grow an azalea, you're going to have to put something on it to change the pH of the soil.
So doing feeding it the azalea food, does that help then?
Yes, that's exactly what you would want would
Right.
be the azalea food because that's going to balance the pH for
Okay.
that plant.
Right. Okay.
And that's going to also be good for your camellias and your hydrangeas
Right.
as well, that same
Okay.
fertilizer. Hollytone is another one that's kind of mixed for the plants that need the more acid in the soil. The condition of the soil, like I said, sandy loam, and then if you are growing acid-loving plants, then you would need to add something to the soil to keep that soil acidic. So, let's see, the next one I don't have it up here, but we do carry lilac, and that's grows best when it's in full sun, but again, Texas sun is different than everybody else's sun. So if you're giving it 6 hours, that's plenty. The rest of the time it can be in shade. Theoretically, they will take a couple of hours, a little bit less sun, so 4 hours. If they're getting 4 hours of sun, they'd probably still do fine. Sweet Spire, which is here. This one is another great one for if you don't know what you have. This one would be a great one. The Sweet Spire will do well in basically anything from full sun to medium to deeper shade. And it blooms it's a pollinator plant. Butterflies love this thing. They love these, the flowers have these extended, I'm not sure what the horticultural term
To
is
land
for
on
them,
them.
but the butterflies like to land on the flower things
Okay.
out here on the ends and just hang here and eat the nectar.
Is there another name for it? Because it's not on your list.
Sweet Spire, it's not on my list, that's true. It's not on my list.
Sweet Spire?
Sweet Spire.
Okay.
And this particular variety is called Little Henry.
Okay.
It's supposed to get fairly big, 2 to 3 feet tall and 2 to 3 feet wide. So it's a nice larger plant to have in your landscape that also blooms and attracts pollinators.
And could you grow that in a pot?
As long as your pot is big enough, yes.
Like a half whiskey barrel?
Yeah, you'd probably need something pretty big like that, or a really big terracotta pot, because it is going to be that 2 to 3 feet. If you grow things in pots that are too small for them, they're going to tend to get spindly. Like this one here, actually is supposed to be tall like this, but like your an example out there that I can grab easily. But anyway, a lot of your, if you've got a plant in a pot that's too small for it, it's going to get root bound and it doesn't have anywhere to go but up. So if you buy a plant that wants to spread out and it can't spread out, then it's going to be tall and skinny. And it's not going to look the way it should look. So that's, I like to harp on choosing the right plant for the right spot. A lot of customers like a plant, they like the way it looks, but they want to put it somewhere where it doesn't fit, and then they want to be able to cut it back over and over again. And the problem with that is when you keep cutting stuff back, it usually ends up just being a wood stock with no foliage on it, or very little foliage, you know, and then you're cutting off the blooms and, you know, things like that. It's just not going to look the way the plant should look. So it's much better to try to find something that actually fits the spot that you've got to fill. Another one that's really cool, this can also be an indoor plant or an outdoor plant. It's called a polka dot plant. I guess you can probably guess why. We also have it over there in a green and white, it's a very low, relatively low growing plant. It likes, here's my notes here. It is an annual, but it adds a lot of really cool color to just about any area. You can grow it like as a border or a ground cover, but it is an annual, so it'll die in the winter. But it's great in part shade, and it says it gets to 22 inches. I've not seen it grow that tall. We've had them, you know, around here, they're always in pots, but they're more like, not much taller than this, really, maybe a foot. So I think that the 2 foot height might be outside of Texas somewhere. And then they get to be about the same across. So about another foot across as well when they're mature. So that's another good low light plant that you can, if you wanted to, you could leave it in a pot and bring it in for the winter and then keep it as a house plant. You could do that, then it would be evergreen. But if you leave it outside, it'll die in our winters. Here's boxwoods are very common around here. This new gen variety is more disease resistant than some of the other boxwoods. Boxwoods can get a fungus, and I think just due to overplanting, that's starting to become more of a problem around here. But the new gems are supposed to be more resistant to that. It's also a dwarf variety, so it's good for smaller spaces, but a dwarf boxwood is still going to be like 3 feet tall. So your regular boxwoods, you know, get to be like 12 feet, 14 feet tall. So when they say dwarf, you know, it's still pretty big for a lot of spots. But it does very well in deeper shade. So that's a good one if you have, you know, like up against your house, more of a foundation plant, something like that. For larger spaces, that would be good. Another big one that does well in shade is this one's called Bear's Britches. It's also called acanthus. You might know it by that name. And this one spreads out quite a bit. It, as far as size, it's supposed to be about, let's see, up to 4 feet tall and 3 feet wide. So again, a bigger space, and it will bloom if it gets enough sun. That's another larger plant. Some of your smaller ones, another bigger one would be your akuba. This one should be on your list. This one is called Gold Dust. There's one that's, there's several varieties of this. All of these plants come in different varieties, so they all look a little bit different. But this one is called Gold Dust, and it's a variegated variety, obviously with the yellow versus a solid green, which is another type that you can get. We usually sell the Gold Dust because people want it for color in their shade gardens.
Right.
And so, you know, you're going to get more color with the Gold Dust variety than you would with some of the other ones. So that's a good one. You mentioned Turk's Cap, and This one's been in its pot a little too long. You can see this is kind of what happens when they're in a confined space. They can't spread their roots out. Also, if it were in your garden, you would be able to trim it and pinch it back to make it bush out more and be fuller. But this is a great one because I think I knocked the blooms off here when I was bumping into it. Oh, there's one left on here. But you can see it's called Turk's cap because of the shape of the flower. It looks like one of those hats that they wear in that part of the world. And it is a great hummingbird plant, and it is great for other pollinators as well. And it gets to be about 3 to 4 feet tall and probably a couple of feet wide. I had this growing in my garden in Capel, and it did very well in about, I'd say it got maybe 4 hours of sun where it was. And it did very well. Should be able to do that just as well in a little bit less sun than that. So that would be a good one.
What was it?
This one is called Turk's Cap, and it's a Texas native. And it's a great pollinator plant. Yes, ma'am.
Is it aggressive? Will it spread? Or does it stay?
No, it's really not.
Okay.
You know, again, you can, if you know what you're doing, you can propagate it, but it's not invasive at all. It's definitely you know, a tame plant for our area. It likes our area, but it's not gonna spread wildly. I mean, birds might spread it, but it's not like some of your other invasive plants that just, like crepe myrtles, will come up everywhere.
Right.
You know, whether you want them to or not. So it's not like that. Let's see, and then started to talk about this one here. This is yarrow. There's a bunch of different kinds of yarrow. We have a bunch of different kinds of yarrow right now. The flower colors are different depending on the variety. They may not grow as tall as this one. This is another great plant for butterflies. They like these flat type of what's called pad-like flowers where like a butterfly wouldn't particularly like the Turk's cap, whereas the hummingbird does, because the hummingbbird's going to be sticking its beak into that opening there, whereas a butterfly wants to sit down on top of the flower and then just kind of poke around, you know. But this one does very well in fairly deep shade, say medium shade, it will be fine. I have, the place I'm at now in Bedford is almost total darkness. It's really deep shade all the time, except in the winter and when the leaves are all bare. And but this one does very well in different parts of my yard. It's very happy in the deeper shade.
And they spread too, because I
will
planted a
spread.
couple. I've got a pink one and a yellow one, and now it's getting bigger and bigger, and I give some to the neighbors.
Yes, I've let mine go because I have so few things that do grow. When I find something that works, I just, hey, keep going.
Go
You know,
for it.
let it go.
And is that perennial?
Shade, but then take
Yes.
afternoon heat, sun,
It-
afternoon sun.
You know, there again, afternoon sun is problematic in Texas because of the heat. In spring, it would probably be fine, but in August, it's probably not going to like that. So yeah, you may want to create some shade for it if you're going to put it in that spot.
And it lasts all winter. I mean, you don't have to do anything to it.
No, I don't do
They-
anything to mine at all.
Yeah.
The other thing I have really good luck with that I don't do absolutely anything is I have irises. Somebody else planted before
yeah.
we moved there. They come up, irises and narcissus come up in my yard just randomly in the spring, and I've didn't plant them. I've never divided them. I don't fertilize them. I don't do anything to them, and they just are happy there.
Right.
My irises
That's
did
fine.
not bloom this spring, but I pulled them up from my old place. I moved in February, and I pulled all the bulbs out from where they were, and I stuck them in pots. And they did not bloom at all. So, will they bloom next year? Maybe?
They may, a lot of your bulbs need to have a certain number of chilling hours in order to bloom properly. And narcissus and irises are in that category. I'm not sure how many chilling hours they do need, but if you don't have a long period of time where the temperature stays below like 45 degrees, then they're not going to bloom. And so, they might bloom one year and not the next because of that chilling hours factor. that comes
So
into
can I
play.
pull up the bulbs that I have now and stick them in the fridge for next year?
Some people do that. Some people do that. Yes, they'll dig up their tulips. Are another one that the tulips need a lot of chilling hours, and we only get about 600 to 800 chilling hours here in a typical winter, and the tulips need like, I don't know, it's like 1,500, something ridiculous that we just never have that many chilling hours. So they're just not going to bloom here unless you do something like that. Dig them up and put them in your freezer for 6 months and then plant them in the early spring, and then you might get something. So back to what I have up here. Another partial shade lover would be your lemon ball sedum. This is what it looks like when it's blooming. I have some over there that are not blooming yet, but you get these really cool little tiny yellow flowers. Before I destroy this, I'm gonna move it. But this will do very well in partial shade. So again, if it's getting 4 hours, that's enough for this guy. And it's a succulent, so it's drought tolerant, low maintenance, little or no pest problems to worry about, very easy care plant, and loves the partial shade. If you're looking for a trailing plant for a container or along a retaining wall or something like that, creeping Jenny is what this is called. And this is, you can spread it sideways like that, let it grow sideways, or you can have it drape over the side of something. A lot of people, look for something like that, especially for their containers. And, sorry, go ahead.
Is that an annual or is that?
It's a perennial here. Another perennial for ground cover for our area is the purple juice heart. This is a little taller, but it still likes to grow sideways as well as up. So, and then if it gets enough sun, it will flower, but it will also still be okay if it doesn't flower. And a lot of people put these underneath their trees because it's something that will grow very well under there. Another one are any of your sedges. I hate that word because they're related to the cut grass, which is a horrible thing. But a lot of your grassy type ornamental grasses will do pretty well in shade. This one here is called, this is actually a Carex. Everillo is the variety, and it's gives you that fountain effect, the clumping grass that curves back over itself like that.
Is that with a C or an S?
C with a C, Carex, C-A-R-E-X, and it's an ornamental grass. So let's see. Oh, the Mahonia is one I haven't talked about yet. That's this guy here.
Oh, it goes right here.
Yeah. Yes.
And
The Mahonia actually gets pretty big. That can be about 4 or even 5 feet tall. It needs a lot of room. One of the cool things about it, though, is that it blooms yellow flowers in the spring, and then it gets berries on it like it has now, and the birds love the berries. So you've got, butterflies coming to the flowers, and then or bees coming to your flowers, and then you've got birds coming for the berries later. So that's a plant that's really great for any kind of pollinator garden.
So we have that.
Right, I forgot to talk about this one. Black and blue salvia is what this is called. There are lots of different kinds of salvias, hundreds. We probably have 40 different kinds of salvias in stock right now. This particular one is more upright growing. Your autumn sage, which is a salvia, a very popular plant here, is more of a full sun plant, likes to grow in sort of a rounded mound shape that's 3 feet by 3 feet or so. This one is more of an upright grower. It's taller rather than wide. But this is a hummingbird magnet. Absolutely loves hummingbirds. Absolutely love this thing. So if you want to attract hummingbirds, I would definitely plant this in the shady part of my garden. This one is probably fine in 3 or 4 hours of sun. Is probably all this one needs. Those are the plants I have up here. Your list has a lot more. Again, the one list is specifically native plants, and some of those would be like the Texas mountain laurel, Mexican buckeye, the crepe myrtles. I think everybody already knows about crepe myrtles. They're everywhere around here, but you don't see as many of the laurels, and you don't see as many of the buckeyes and some of the other Texas native trees.
You have Japanese maples on here, and I always thought of it as a tree.
It depends on the variety. I mean, it is a tree, yes. The Japanese maples are a tree, but there are, again, a lot of different varieties, and they've hybridized them to where some of them are very small in stature. There's some that are growing on Hall Johnson down here that are maybe this tall, and that's as tall as they're ever going to get. And then they're what they call a weeping variety.
I wondered what those were.
Yeah.
Was they a real dark red?
Real dark red leaves. Again, you want to know which variety you're getting when you pick out a Japanese maple, because some of them can be 60 feet tall.
Well, that was my
and
point.
other ones are this tall. So
But
variety
crepe myrtles.
Some plants need more time to mature. Some of your perennials actually can take up to 3 years to mature. So, they don't do a whole lot until they hit that maturity level. So that's could be what's going on there. You had a question there?
Did you talk about the one right in front of you, or did I miss that?
Oh,
That maroon one?
This one here? Oh, yes, I missed this one. I'm sorry.
Coleus?
This is a coleus. Most of your coleuses are shade plants, so at least partial shade as a minimum. There are some that are called sun coleus. I still wouldn't put them in full sun. Even though they're called sun coleus, I would still put them in partial sun, partial shade at the most. So again, depends a little bit on the variety, exactly how much they'll tolerate, how much shade or sun they'll tolerate, but this is basically a shade plant. It comes in lots of different sizes and colors. I have a whole bunch of different ones over there. Different foliage colors and everything. So this is a good choice too for containers or in-ground gardening.
And that's an annual.
It's an annual. Yes, it is an annual. Most of the ones I'm talking about here are either perennials or evergreens, but these little ones, the creeping Jenny is a perennial, but the polka dot and the coleus are going to be annuals. Some of your other begonias are an annual. What else have I got over there in the way of your impatiens are an annual, but they're a shade plant as well.
Cannas.
I'm sorry?
Cannas.
Cannas, it depends. They're mostly a full sun, but some will take more shade than others. But most of them want full sun and they want moist soil. So they tend to prefer more
Boggy area.
boggy type areas, yeah, or
Okay.
areas where you don't have such great drainage.
Maybe just wait for some rain.
You can always move it.
Right.
Yeah, they're still
They do
in
move
pots.
real easily.
Yeah, they're almost like a bulk plant where you can get them up and move them around.
PRA, I don't know how to say it.
It's either Wachera or Hoopera, depending on who you talk to. But yeah, that's another good one for shade, and that's a native plant as well. It comes in a bunch of different foliage colors. If it gets enough sun, it will bloom, kind of like the hostas, only smaller. Some of them are more of a smooth leaf. Some are more ruffled around the edges.
I had a lot of color, but it just didn't seem to last through the whole summer.
Probably because of the heat.
Maybe it's too far north or south. Too far south.
If it's in the right spot here, it'll do fine.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll try to
But yeah, a lot of plants here will kind of go dormant in the summer and then flush back out in the fall.
Oh, so maybe I gave up on it too soon.
Possibly. Like for example, this one. My experience with this one was that in the midsummer, it would turn yellow and look like crap.
Same here, and I've had mine for 6 years. Y'all planted it for me in a rock garden, believe it or not, under the eave of the house. And it just depends on the time of the year how it gets the sun.
Yeah. Well, mine, like I said, would look terrible in August. It was yellow and just ugly. Shear it off, cut the ugly off, and in September it'll flesh back out and look great again September into November, depending on when the cold weather gets here. So yeah, you may see that with a lot of plants here. And tomatoes are like that. They will go dormant in the summer and in the heat. If you leave them in the ground, they'll start to grow again in the fall. A lot of people try to nurse their tomatoes through the summer so that they can get to that fall growing season.
Yeah, I put up shade cloths because they're next to a garage. So I put one in and then I put up poles to provide shade. But they still didn't fruit until fall.
Yeah. I wanted to talk real quick about how to create shade if you don't already have it, because some of your plants, are really going to need it. One thing you can do is get shade cloth, as she mentioned. We don't have it in stock right now. We have sold it in the past. I'm not sure why we don't have it right now, but you can buy sheets of shade cloth and then tie them up around your garden and attach them to like the side of your house or your fence or something like that, and then stake them, that type of thing. One of my neighbors, she's got a lot more sun than I do, and she took one of these tents like we have there, only smaller, and put that over top of one of her flower beds where she wanted to shade her plants in the afternoon. Another way to do it is to build a pergola or some kind of trellis and then plant stuff on the trellis that will create shade, like a vining plant on your trellis. That will create shade over top of your other plants. And then you can also just use taller plants to shade your lower growing plants. So, if you wanted to create shade for this guy, you can plant, plant it near your tuba or something like that. So if you're aware of, which way the sun is traveling and make sure that west facing side has taller plants in front of it, that will shade the lower growing ones on the east side of it. So that's another way. I've done that like in my vegetable garden with my tomatoes and peppers. Your peppers can take more sun and more heat than tomatoes will actually. So you can use your peppers to shade your other vegetables.
You don't have to worry about them cross-pollinating or anything?
No,
Good.
no, not with peppers, not at all. And your tomatoes are self-pollinating, so you don't need to worry about that type of thing. I wanted to talk real quick too about grasses. If you are trying to grow grass under a tree, with your normal lawn grasses for Texas, you're going to have a problem because St. Augustine and Bermuda both are sun-loving plants. They need 12 hours of sun, and if they start, spreading out toward, under a tree, they're going to peter out. It's just going to get thinner and thinner and thinner until it's just bare dirt. And so you're just not going to get that grass to grow there. That's a problem that people bring us all the time is, how do I get my St. Augustine to grow under my tree? And the answer is you can't.
How about zoysia?
Zoysia is only a little bit more shade tolerant. It's still not going to grow in deep shade. So if you're right under a tree, it's just not going to do it. Fescue is more shade tolerant, but that is a fall grass. It comes out in the fall, and then it's dormant in the spring and summer. So you're still going to have a mismatch. You're not going to have the fill-in.
I have a mud pit in my backyard. I have not a blade of grass, and there's elm trees all around.
Yeah. So other than killing the elm trees,
Not gonna happen.
yeah,
I got Turk's pep under my elms.
yeah.
That doesn't help for me. I got a 20 by 20 backyard
Oh, okay.
and a dog.
But I've got my St. Augustine growing under the tree, but
I
I'm
do
on a
too.
slope, and it gets morning sunlight and then filtered, and it does just fine. But in the deep shade, like you said, it doesn't under the oak trees back along the back.
Yeah, yeah. So and then like I said, fescue is actually a cool season grass, so it's going to start coming out in the fall and winter, and then be dormant in the summer. And so you're still going to have half the year where it looks bad. So the solution really is to try to come up with shade plants rather than grasses. Go with perennials or annuals or
What about Asian jasmine?
Asian jasmine is an option. I didn't bring that up here to talk about because it can be invasive.
That would be great.
And
For me.
a lot of people don't like the way it looks, but it's very hardy. It does pretty well, and even Asian jasmine though needs some sun. So very deep shade is just a really difficult space to fill. There's if you look at your list, the ones that are for deep shade are going to be your best choices. And the list, by the way, is not complete. It's not every plant in the universe. It's just what we have in the store right now that I wanted to share with you. So there you may find other plants that will work there. I'm not saying that's a comprehensive list, but it is, they're plants that we know will do well in those kinds of spots. So that's about it. Let's see. Any other questions before? Yes, ma'am.
I have a lot of hostas and I have a lot of shade, but the hostas still don't really thrive. And I know you said that they need acidic, so is there something I should add?
Well, again, it could be fertilization. It could be that there's just not enough sun there. If you do your sun track, that would tell you exactly how much sun they're getting. They do, they want more of a partial sun, partial shade space is best for them, especially if you want them to bloom. but they could probably do medium shade, and then anything more than that, they're probably going to struggle. So, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all very much for enduring the hot, humid weather out here in the greenhouse and for coming out today. Appreciate your time and attention. Thank you.